This video is specially prepared for the Spooky Stories channel.
Hey! Can anyone hear me? My name is John Norton. Something terrible has happened to me. I think I've gone mad. I was on flight 5481 from Charlotte to Greenville. Nothing strange occurred, except for a slight jolt during takeoff. It had been quite some time, and I was growing worried as to why we hadn't landed yet. It took a staggering 3 hours before the plane started descending. As soon as we landed, I hurriedly made my way to the exit because I was running late. What struck me as odd at that moment was that no one was getting up or making any movements. Though now, I think I understand why. As I stepped outside, I realized we weren't in Greenville but in some other town. It seemed we had made an emergency landing, I thought, but I didn't return to the plane. Instead, I kept walking. The airport was completely deserted. It had probably been out of service for a long time, as the wall-mounted display showed flight schedules from 1979, not electronically but manually. I continued on, hoping to find a place to grab a bite to eat in this town. The streets were devoid of people. Not a single car or pedestrian in sight. A thick, heavy fog enveloped everything. I could only see about 5 meters ahead. As I walked, a strange sensation crept over me, as if someone was watching me from around corners. I would turn around, but there was no one to be seen. A shiver ran through my body, and cold drops of sweat formed on my forehead. Something very strange was happening here, I thought. Ancient, old-fashioned cars from the 60s and 70s were parked everywhere. Finally, I stumbled upon a shabby, mediocre-looking store, just the kind you'd expect in such towns. As I entered, I saw no one there either, no clerk, no customers. But my unease only grew. Now it felt like invisible eyes were watching me from all sides, waiting for something from me. I walked around the products, everything was expired. I picked up a pack of candies and checked the manufacturing date. It read 1979. I rushed to the cashier's counter, where an old receipt lay. The date on it was stamped, May 14, 1979. My legs grew weak. No one had lived in this town for 34 years. I ran frantically back to the airport, leaving my belongings behind in the store. The ever-present invisible eyes followed me closely. The air rang in my ears, and it felt like someone was whispering persistently in my ear. It was unbearable. I dashed inside the airport and looked out the window. My heart seemed to stop. The plane was gone. It had taken off, leaving me alone in this empty town. I couldn't stand anymore, and I collapsed to my knees. Tears streamed down my face, and I couldn't stop them. I knelt in the center of the abandoned airport, crying. Then I screamed, hoping they would hear me on the plane and rescue me from this hell. I screamed as long as I had strength, until I was hoarse and had a splitting headache. Eventually, my strength ran out completely, and I lost consciousness. I woke up as my body was crawling across the tiled floor towards the exit. Something had grabbed my wrists. They were human hands, but they exuded a chilling coldness, like that of a freezer. I had no strength to break free, and I lost consciousness once again. Waking up, I found myself at some intersection. My legs wouldn't obey, and my head turned with difficulty. My entire body stiffened as if thousands of nails had been hammered into me on the road. I lay on the bare asphalt for about half an hour. Then, gathering all the remaining strength of my will, I slowly got up. My legs were still weak, and I moved with difficulty. I decided to find a car to escape. Around me were small, single-story houses. But there were no cars anywhere. I walked from block to block but couldn't find a single car. They all seemed to have vanished. As I walked, something started to watch me again from everywhere, from house windows, bushes, behind poles. Suddenly, I saw a figure of a girl emerging from the mist. I froze and stared at her like a zombie. She didn't even look in my direction, just ran past me and soon disappeared into the fog. There was something strange about her. No, not just because she was the first person I saw in this cursed city. The girl was transparent, as if made of mist. I started to panic. I ran in the opposite direction. I just ran, without looking back. Meanwhile, life in the town began to stir. Cars made of mist appeared, with the same misty ghost-like people inside. Ghosts came out of houses, as if going to work. All their empty eyes were looking at me, but the ghosts continued on their way. Finally, I reached the edge of the town. From the mist, a sign emerged in front of me with the inscription, "You are leaving Slipstone. Have a safe journey." I couldn't run anymore and started walking slower. I walked for about 3 hours, and the damn fog still wouldn't dissipate. It seemed to be getting closer instead and would soon engulf me and drag me back to this inferno. I couldn't think about hunger anymore. All of this seemed like a dream, and I was about to wake up in a cozy, dry airplane seat. But, unfortunately, it wasn't a dream. Soon, I saw another sign. It made me break into a sweat, while my body grew clammy. It read, "Welcome to Slipstone. Population, 2,306. I have been living in an abandoned store for 3 weeks now. Canned food is running out. I see them. They're outside. Just standing there, looking at me and not going anywhere. They're probably waiting for me to let them in." I found a sound recording device at a local radio station capable of transmitting signals. It seems to be working fine, although I can only transmit messages on one frequency. I no longer know if everything happening here is real or if I'm lying in some psychiatric ward, experiencing hallucinations. I learned that these creatures can only move in the fog, otherwise, they disappear. Despite turning on 3 fans I found here, the fog still slowly seeps through the door crack. If anyone hears me, please get me out of here. I'm in Slipstone. I'm in Slipstone. I'm not alone here.
On January 8, 2003, a small passenger turboprop airplane, the Beech 1900, en route to Greenville, South Carolina, veered to the left and climbed vertically shortly after takeoff at 8:45 a.m. local time on Wednesday. It then flipped over and crashed into a U.S. Airways hangar at the International Airport in Charlotte. Almost everyone on board the small passenger plane, 17 passengers and 2 crew members, perished in the tragedy. 2 more individuals are considered missing. This message was transmitted on a frequency that had never been used before, but it was intercepted by a radio enthusiast from North Carolina. He handed over the recording to the police, and an investigation began. It was discovered that the town of Slipstone was not present on the map of the United States. The recording was considered a joke, and the case was closed. However, what intrigued them in the recording was that strange sounds resembling whispers could be heard in the final minutes. Expert analysis disproved that the sounds belonged to a human, an animal, or were artificially created. The recording was posted on a missing persons website on the internet but disappeared after a few days. The whereabouts of passenger John Norton, who was on Flight 5481, is still unknown.
You can listen to more stories on the Spooky Stories channel.